This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of multi-practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is someone I'm excited to introduce to you all. He's someone who really embodies the entrepreneurial mindset in optometry and comes from a lineage of entrepreneurs. And I'm excited to have him on the show today. He's a recognized leader in his field for extensive clinical expertise and his commitment to advancing the practice of optometry. He was commissioned as a captain of the U.S. Army, primarily serving at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where he excelled as chief of optometry at Womack Army Medical Clinic. He actively engages in mentoring aspiring optometrists and aims to elevate the standards of optometry. He's the optometrist and owner of Mount Hood Eye Care, which is a 3-location practice outside of Portland, Oregon. Please welcome Dr. Tony Turin. Tony, welcome.
Yeah. So excited to be here. Fan of the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation too. And we'll jump in with our first question that we like to ask everyone is, what was the most important thing that helped you build your empire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could mention numerous things, but I think for me, I've always had a mindset that anything done very consistently will grow exponentially if you just allow it time. And whether that's good or bad, and hopefully in starting a practice, we always had the mindset if you start treating your very first patient, really, really well, and they tell 2 people about you, those 2 should tell 2 more. And then from there, it just continues to grow. And, over a decade, it's been exciting to see how that's really, really worked well for us.
Yeah, that I can see. So what I'm hearing is consistency is compound returns almost, right?
Yeah.
I think, what was it, like it was Einstein or Warren Buffett or someone said something about compound interest being like a force of nature or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Eighth wonder of the world or something like that. Yeah.
So you're using that and you're saying that compound interest of improving every day has really paid off for your practice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I briefly told you. So when I was growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur. My grandpa started a business with my dad and his 4 brothers. And I remember being young and literally not having much. Like each birthday, we were thankful to get, a single gift, if a party or anything like that. But we just watched how they consistently worked. And, over a few years, by the time middle school started, we just saw how it began to compound. And then once I was out of the house, they were doing remodels, they were building a new home. I don't know if it was cheaper because the kids were out of the house or whatnot, but yeah, so I think I got a lot of confidence coming out of a family like that, to where I knew if we started a cold practice, it might be difficult the first year, but then the second year you should start to see some growth. And then once you get that, it's almost like a snowball effect. The momentum just grows. So yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Can you give me maybe 1 to 3 things that compounded for your practice over time? Like, what were some of the things that you did were like, for year 1, it was but by year 3 or 4 or 5, it really made a big impact on the business?
Yeah. First is just patience, right? If you and I have, just I feel if you treat others the way they want to be treated, and if you really just take an extra 5-10 minutes with that patient, just hearing their needs and then giving your expertise, that one patient, like I said, they should at least tell maybe 2 or 3. And then if those 2 or 3, come in as new patients, and you treat them the same way, literally the compounding effect is patient to patient. And then with that, I think just comes the profits as well. It's one thing once you hit that break even, it's a good place to be, but then you tack on a few more patients and then you start becoming profitable. And then from there, once you're past the break even, every single patient you tack on, just fiscally, you see that compound as well.
You said something really interesting there. Spend about 5 to 10 minutes extra with the patient. I know a lot of folks will say, well, I have a tight schedule. I have to see more patients in a day.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is something almost counterintuitive to the normal rhetoric or normal advice that you hear. So talk to me about that a little bit. When does it apply? So folks listening to this, how would they know if that's the right move for them or not the right move?
Sure. I mean, for me, I don't think I try to cram a lot more patients in and make myself at capacity, but I do like we're kind of a stickler at running lean in a lot of ways, whether it's staff or even just the monotony of paperwork and things like that. Like we've really tried to clear house of getting as much done up front online. Patients in our medical record can import their intake form, and so if you cut off that, 5-10 minutes of check-in and put that on the back end of your exam, I mean, it's really never 10 minutes, but you take an extra 2 to 3 to explain them something simple like astigmatism. I mean, it really can just the patient quality of care goes way up if they, spend that extra little bit of time or feel like you're spending that extra little bit of time with them. And we also at our practice, it might be different. I mean, the way we practice, like I don't have any of our doctors have a technician. So they actually bring the patient back themselves and start kind of the case history just by doing a little autorefractor,
Okay.
the pressure. So that conversation gets started early and it ends and it just allows that doctor patient a few more minutes together. And I think that's so meaningful.
That's encouraging because that's a very unique flow. You don't really see that in most practices, but here you are with 3 practices doing something that I haven't really heard at that scale. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. It's working for us. I mean, we're pretty, pretty thankful where we're at. Our
From
doctors work hard. I mean, they
Yeah,
are great people. Yeah, we were just looking kind of at numbers and, trying to manage, obviously we don't want so many patients through our door. We're cramming them into 15 minutes, but we also don't want hour-long exams. So trying to figure out what that balance is and what it looks like.
what are you at right now? About 30 minutes an exam?
Yeah, I think on average, our busiest practice averages about 2.5 patients per doctor hour of when they're seeing patients. Our slower office is at about two. That's established, and then we just bought a brand new one that kind of fell in our lap about 2 years ago, and that's essentially we're looking at it as a cold start.
Mm,
So, they're at maybe 8 patients a day,
got it.
up from probably 4 last year or the year before. So,
So when you say 2.5, that may be like 2 full exams plus a medical
yeah,
or,
exactly.
a full exam and then a medical and contact lens follow-up, that type of thing.
Pretty much that's
Nice.
exactly right. Yeah, we try to book just routine exams every 30 minutes. And then we're a little bit rural, so we do get quite a few walk-ins of, urgent patients that need to be seen. And our staff again does such a phenomenal job of trying to identify like what patients can get bumped down to 20 minutes and
Mm,
yeah, they make our schedule tight but very doable.
nice.
Yeah.
Exciting. That's pretty interesting that the way your flow works. So as you're growing your empire, what was the one thing that happened that you didn't expect that you were surprised about?
I think the how useful good staff can be. I mean, I've been shocked that we've been able to kind of get to where we're at. Like I said, we run pretty lean, so it's not like we're overly staffed, but I really have come to realize like if you have one A player, oh man, it's equivalent to like 3 or 4 B or C players.
Mm,
And so over the years, we have just been able to just people luck, I guess, get some really good people in that have stuck with us. And I think part of it is we've allowed certain individuals opportunities to grow. And that's one nice thing about now having multiple locations. Like a good example, we brought in a young, like this employee, like she knows more about systems and business because she came from a franchise that just developed her in training. And so we brought her in kind of under our manager and didn't really have a whole lot of room for her to, grow beyond that. But once we acquired a third practice, we asked that, a young 20-year-old if she wants to manage it. And now
wow,
she's killing it. So yeah, we got a couple really good A players.
that's great. Yeah, I think I was reading somewhere. I forget what exactly was. I'm going to butcher this, but basically, if you pay 10% more to get like a B player, they'll get you maybe 20 or 30% more productivity than like a C player or average person. But if you
Mhm.
spend like, I think 20 to 30, maybe 40%, maybe even more for an A player, they'll do double, triple what a C
Oh, it's
player would
crazy,
do.
yeah.
So it's crazy how much more. It's like a power law effect, I guess is what it's called, where you have a lot better. It's an outsized impact. It's not a linear growth. It's like exponentially better.
Oh, it is. Yeah, we've witnessed that.
That's
I've
cool.
heard it described as, like, try to find 5 employees that will work like 10 and then pay them like 8.
Oh, there you go.
So, if you ask our optician, like our manager, if she compares a similar position, she's probably making a little bit more, but man, just because of who she is, the amount of work that she gets done is unmatched. So yeah, I would take 5 of her over, 10 any other employees. So yeah, it's going pretty well.
I like that. That's a good rule of thumb.
Mhm.
And so what really inspired you? And then we talked about it a little bit, but what was really the crux of you wanting to grow your empire and grow your practices?
I think so, like coming out of the military, like, I loved my time in the military, but just the concept of, like, if I wanted to pick my parents up from the airport at the end of my workday, I'd have to go and find, like, 4 signatures and take time off. So for me, the most meaningful thing about owning business is just the autonomy. Am I saying that right? Like, just the idea of, like, I can set my schedule, I'm here at home doing this with you, during working hours is such a like, I just love that aspect of it. So that's really what's been a driver for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of folks. I remember my wife, who's the optometrist in our offices.
Mhm.
Her dad told her to go into advised to go into optometry over nursing because you could have your own practice and
Yeah.
develop well, have schedule freedom as an optometrist. So that's how she ended
Mhm.
up in optometry over nursing school, which
Yeah.
is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really I've loved it. I love the profession, but also just the freedom it has allowed.
I'm with you on the profession thing because I tell people, it's a really unique business because it's almost like 4 or 5 businesses wrapped into one. Because you have
Mhm.
the retail sales for glasses, then you have your
Mhm.
contact lenses, which are technically medical device sales. Then you have your medical exams, and then you have your chronic medicals. You have your, I'll call it more preventative or like dry eye type medicals, and then you have your vision. So you can really choose to practice a lot of different ways, and so
Yeah.
that's pretty exciting business.
Yeah, it really is.
So, as far as one of the things that we're seeing a lot with my business care team is that folks are really having challenges with staff costs going up, as well as reimbursements staying flat or going down. How are you all dealing with those challenges? Or if you're not facing those, what are problems are you facing? Are you facing the cost going up and insurance reimbursements staying flat or going down?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an industry as a whole, we all have to kind of learn to adapt to that. And I don't think we do anything really special. And in fact, I mean, I think a great quote, I think it was Rockefeller. My wife just shared it at my birthday was, learn to do the ordinary things extraordinarily well, and that will lead to success. So if you walked into our practice, I mean, we don't do anything that much different than anyone else, but we really do like the ordinary things extraordinarily well. I think we communicate from the time we pick up a phone call. It's actually one of our employees picking it up, and they're all very knowledgeable about insurances and benefits. And they upfront try to tell them, like, this may be medical as far as your exam goes versus your vision. We'll explain why. So we try to, again, maximize like all we can out of every visit, which is hard. Like, it's a lot of staff that has to be trained on how to do that. But I think if you can, on one side, treat the patient extraordinarily well, but then try to capture all you can from them, and not even like in a profit center approach, but our walkout or our capture rate for glasses and contacts, like almost every rep says, like, you guys are doing something that is just awesome. So I think it comes from just the personal touch
Yeah.
from the time even patients call our office to the time they leave.
Is that something you'd be willing to share? Just curious what your capture rate is. If not,
Uh,
that's okay.
Both for contacts and glasses, it hovers a little over 70%.
Oh,
So
that is really high.
yeah,
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 it's impressive. So you're clearly doing something to build trust. So what I'm hearing is almost like an underlying theme of trust, building
mhm,
trust with staff, building trust with patients, and knowing that you're going to take care of them. It sounds like it's helping.
yeah.
Is that accurate to say?
No, I think you hit that on. Yeah, that's right on.
So is there anything keeping you up at night? Like any big challenges you're facing right now?
Um, I think personally, I mean, there's a lot, just life, right? I mean, my son, he's a sophomore in high school. He's actually the starting quarterback for his football team. So right now, I mean, any Friday night, we're so amped up and nervous for him that we don't sleep well there. And my wife and him, and as a family, like we started a franchise. We opened 2 of those this year. But also just professionally, this was the first year, like with all that going on. And again, my ultimate goal of kind of just wanting some more freedom is I hired out my day job in a
Mm.
sense. So we hired a new grad who's just this stud of a guy, like so much smarter than I am. I think patients probably want to see him now over me over just the last 3 months. But
Okay.
so he took a lot of my patient care days, and so I can just focus more on kind of executive level decisions,
Nice.
which was definitely starting to be more of a need. And like I like I think Jeff Bezos said it well in the fact like he pays his executives to make like 3 key decisions each year, not to make 1,000 decisions every day.
Mm.
And so I think I've stepped back and just making a lot of the day to day, decisions just to focus on a few big ones that just an example, like we had to decide if we were going to move locations of our third office because the lease was just astronomical for the area. And we kind of, when we bought it, we assumed it. So making a decision to change locations isn't cheap, but the long term effect just made so much more sense. So we decided to do that. And I wouldn't have had the bandwidth if I hadn't had made that decision.
Yeah, that's pretty. So I'm hearing again. I'll reflect back what I'm kind of hearing, and let me know if
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
accurate. So what I'm hearing is that in addition to having 3 locations, you've got a franchise operation. You probably have other investments too. I'm guessing. You're almost going away from shifting your mindset from I have to work to generate income to I work because I want to, and I'm looking at these. Maybe this is a bad word or a bad expression for it, but performing assets.
Mhm.
Um, Patient care is not necessarily, optometry office is not necessarily, I hate to use that optometry office because there is an element of care. You don't want to get, some people don't get uncomfortable talking about it that way, but it's hard to bring in people and you stepping away if it's not performing at a certain level.
Yeah.
So it almost sounds like you've gone back to say, okay, what are the key points to make sure things are still going the direction I wanted to, but I have the ability to do that and step away.
Mhm. And I think when I started the practice, like I knew that day would come where I'd want to do that. And so from basically the starting point, I kind of told staff, like, I don't want to be the face of the office. I want to create a system where I can almost plug and play any good optometrist into our system and he'll have success. And so when I was there working as an optometrist, I told him just treat me as an employee. Like I don't, I'll make decisions elsewhere, but when I'm here in office, like you're the manager, I'm the doctor. I expect my managers to kind of know more about the business day to day than the doctor does. And so, yeah, I took my staff does not have any problem setting me straight as far as like, you need to do routing slips this way. This is why.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, I, I'm very thankful I removed myself and Dr. Ryan has been there just to move in and has had so much success. So it's been good. I love that part of it.
How long did it take you to get to that point?
I mean, 10 years, really. We had looked to hire, like, ideally, I wanted to, hire someone part-time and kinda phase myself out, and so we had people in and out, like, working Saturdays or 2 days a week, and because we're a little more rural, we're pretty far, we're, like, 45 minutes outside of Portland, it was hard to get someone out there just to work part-time, so we finally decided, like, let's just go all in, hire someone full-time. The amount of applicants went up, and therefore we were to get just this really stellar new doctor to replace me, which has been great.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
good. And so 10 years,
Mhm.
did you try to do it sooner? Like, you kind of mentioned that you did try to do it sooner,
I
but
probably would have, but just the way everything aligned and timing,
okay.
and again, I thought I would do it more gradually than all of a sudden, if a patient calls and they've been seeing me for years, it is kinda shocking for them to hear like, "Well, Dr. Turner's not necessarily taking patients right now." It we it would have been nice to say like, "Hey, next year, I might only be doing part-time." So, it did kinda come as a surprise, and there's still probably some that, wouldn't want me. But again, I think once they see our new doctor and meet him, they're in such good hands.
That's good. So what you talked a little about what's kind of challenging right now for you, but what are you excited about in terms of your business, your practices, the field? What
Sure.
excites you the most?
I think this new role that I'm playing, I think it just has so much. It'll allow me to kind of do more. Our staff is phenomenal, but they haven't really had a whole lot of. Not even that they want one-on-one with me, but I think I need to make more of a presence at the other offices.
Mm.
Because again, I was working full time at our original location. And so now to kind of, once a week, kind of have staff meetings where I can chime in and kind of get, a better feel for what they need. I'm really excited because then I think those ones will grow just as quick and as much as our other practice. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's exciting. So that role of being an executive of the practices.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh,
and I think they're looking forward to that too. I mean, everyone kinda needs a good leader and, one of our practices, I'm a 50-50 with the doctor there. She was a classmate of mine and, phenomenal, like, what she does in treating her patients is unmatched, and so that's where I knew, like, if she ever wanted to partner, I told her for years, like, "Let's do it." But she also kinda needs me to be the leader of the business, like, she just that's not her forte, and she knew that, and so I'll be down there more often, kinda helping out with the staff and, getting systems just a little bit more methodical, I think they need.
yeah. The what one of the things that I've heard a few times on this podcast, interviewing a handful of folks, is the good leaders know what they're good at and where to focus their attention and where not to focus. It's almost as important to know where not to focus.
Mhm,
'Cause it's almost like, well, I can do everything, right?
mhm,
But especially when you got 3 locations, no, you can't. You can't be in 3
yeah.
locations at once. So, that's what, at least that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's what you've seen or felt with your own practices.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I got some blaring weaknesses, so it's not hard for me just to like back away on those things. Like I'm really poor at day to day. Like if someone isn't managing me, giving me a checklist of like, hey, these things are things you said you would do and you haven't done, I'm like, will you please get these done? I'll just keep forgetting about them. Like I'll keep one or two priorities and their big picture things, and I'll kind of work towards those. But the day to day, like kind of the monotonous things, I need a good manager to you need to sign this, come in and do this week. So yeah, we're a good team.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, so let's shift gears just a little bit.
Sure.
I'd like to know what makes you tick. So, how does Tony think of the way he does? So,
Yeah.
if you can give me, a couple of key moments in your life that you felt really formed you. Could have been 6-year old Tony had a lemonade stand. In college, you had a class that would just blew your mind.
Mhm.
Whatever it might be, can you give me some key moments that really influenced you in your life that kind of made you who you are today?
Yeah. So there and it's amazing to me how much this kind of in hindsight plays into how I run my practice, but it's a story all the way back. So I don't know how old I was, maybe like 8, maybe 10. I grew up our backyard kind of backed up to a golf course.
Mhm.
And on the golf course, it's a really tight fairway on a par 5, so I got into selling golf balls as like my first job. And my good friend lived on the third hole and obviously same age, same mindset. Like he wanted to sell golf balls as well. And so we got talking one day and he told me, like, no joke, he would listen if someone hit a bad shot, he would go and find their golf ball. And when he found the golf ball, he would take it and he would try to resell it to the guy.
Ah,
And I'm like, well, that's kind of smart, but doesn't that kind of rub them the wrong way? And he's like, well, yeah, but they usually always buy it. I'm like, all right, that's fine. But what I ended up doing, like, I would do the same work. Like, I would find the golf ball, I'd listen, I followed his advice, ran and got the golf ball. But instead of selling it back, I would offer it with like some cheeky comment from a kid of like, hey, based on how you hit that shot, you might need a few more. Like, do you want to buy some golf balls from me? And so like that, I gave him back his ball for free, like good customer service. And in turn, like he bought a lot more balls from me. And so kind of that you look at, like I was saying earlier, just our personal touch and how you treat people well, they're going to be more trustworthy in buying from you. You know, they're not going to be out to save a buck here or there, hopefully. Obviously, we still get a few of those, but I think if you can add in like just the personal element, like a caring demeanor and good staff like that, that's really helped us. And it's weird looking back. Like that was the lesson I learned just from selling golf balls on my backyard one
That
conversation with a friend.
that's probably something. That's probably one really valuable lesson. So it almost sounds like hindsight's always 2020, but um, it sounds like what you learned there, the difference between what your friend was doing was you're building trust with them by giving them their ball back. And
Yeah.
you found this, by the way, I have plenty more. And they're like, yeah, thanks for help. It's almost reciprocity too. It's like, hey, you got me this ball. Thank you for the advice. You know what? You're right. I do need them anyways. I'm here. Just, they seem to be at a fair enough price, maybe a little more than the market, more than they would get at the golf pro shop, but whatever. You're on the course, right? So
Hmm.
that's actually a pretty cool story.
Yeah. It was good. I mean, I was thankful. It was a cool place to grow up too. I loved right at the base of Mount Hood outside of Portland. It was a cool community.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so let's turn back the clock a little bit. Let's say it's 4 days after Tony has graduated OD school. What would you going back in time to your younger self? What would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now?
Okay, I gotcha. I would say, I mean, it's good advice. Even just what I'm doing now is like you got to find a way to enjoy the process as well as the profits. And I've heard a quote like, enjoy the process and the profits because the process is where you live. So, like, if I, over the last decade, if I wasn't enjoying the day to day of seeing patients, growing a business, there's no way I would have had the, I guess, grit, determination to get to where I was at today. Even though it was hard work, like I enjoyed the process. My wife is like just not only my partner in life, but also just one of the best business partners I could have imagined. So we've learned to really work well and enjoy doing business together. So yeah, I would just say make sure you enjoy the process.
Nice. It's interesting because I was reading a book called Die with Zero.
Mhm.
And it's a cool book, cool philosophy. It's it basically says, look, your prime living years are 40s and 50s.
Mm,
Ideally, if you die at zero, you're spending most of your money there, maximizing your likelihood of traveling, spending time with kids. And then instead of leaving your inheritance after you die, give it to your kids and whoever you want to now, because it'll make much more of an outsizable impact younger in their
yeah,
age.
yeah.
And so it's almost like that same philosophy. It's pretty neat to hear you kind of come across that on your own.
Hmm. Yeah, we try. Try to. I mean, life's. I think that quote. I think it was Helen Keller. Like life's either one daring adventure or nothing at all. So we really set out just to kind of enjoy life and do some fun things along the way.
Tony, you've lived a pretty robust life. I think it'd be cool to read a book or something. That you write, so, just to hear the philosophies of Tony. So
Actually, stepping back, that's one thing I've sat down to just start writing. I
yeah,
mean, in a sense, like yeah, uh, we'll see. Hopefully, someday I'll have a book. Why not?
yeah, why not? So
Yeah.
I think, especially coming from an entrepreneurial journey as an optometrist, it resonates. I think it would resonate with a lot of other optometrists. So hopefully, this podcast will. So,
Yeah.
um, well, let me ask you just what do you do for fun outside of work? Anything else you want to share?
Sure.
Like, sounds like you go to football games since high school every
Yeah.
Friday night. A couple of kids, right? What else do you for fun, or what gets you excited these days?
Yeah, I would I try to I've heard it called like what was it? Habit stacking from the guy. But I think hobby stackings is more what we do. Like
Okay,
if I'm gonna get into something, it's usually because of the people I'm involved with. So my wife and I mean, we've been married 20 years and we still joke like, yeah, we love each other, but we also just like each other. So we get out, do quite a few fun things together in our area. And then
nice.
each kid too. I mean, yeah, my son is all in for football.
Yeah,
And so in the off season, like if his buddies he doesn't have someone to throw to, I'm out being his receiver and it keeps me in shape too.
yeah,
And then our daughter, she's so into soccer right now. Like athletics is big in our family.
yeah.
So yeah, some days she's up at like 5 a.m. watching Liverpool, the Premier League.
Wow,
So I'll try to have my coffee and enjoy the game with her.
nice.
And then one cool thing, like you mentioned, just living life is I have a couple buddies that over the last few years, I don't know, did you know Jesse Itzler? Have you ever heard
Yeah,
of him?
he's in Atlanta. I'm married to Sarah Blakely.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep, I know Jesse. Actually, I've seen him speak a few times. So
Such a good speaker.
yeah, quick
Yeah.
story. So I'm in an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Network, and so is
Uh-huh.
Sarah. And so Jesse comes and speaks regularly, not super
Ah,
regularly, but when there's big events in Atlanta, we usually get him as a
yeah.
speaker down here.
Oh, you'll have to invite me down. I'll come hang out. I'd love to catch up.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know on a personal level, but I've seen him speak a few times here down here, so it's been cool. Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard he's just such a great speaker.
yeah.
Um, have you heard him mention, gosh, what does he call it? I'd have to look it up. I think I have it somewhere. Misogy? Have you heard him talk about that?
Misogi,
Masugi?
is
Misogi?
that the concept where you do something hard every year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he says do something like so hard that you'll remember it the other like 364 days of the year. So even before hearing that, I have a group of friends that each year we kind of create almost like a challenge. Like last year, we wanted to summit Mount Hood and we wanted to run around it that summer in a day. And so taking that on together just breeds some deep friendships. And so, yeah, I mean, we do lots of things just to stay active, stay healthy, and also have just a sense of adventure about them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
I think easiest, I mean, just shoot me an email, reach out. I don't do social media hardly at all. I have a LinkedIn page that I do. I think that's how you reach out. So I check that periodically. But yeah, email, I usually keep my inbox, filter through it each day. So
And what's the best
shoot
email
me
for
an email.
people to reach you?
Tony J. Turin at gmail.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well for folks
Sure.
to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you again, Dr. Tony Turin, for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. No, I appreciate you're doing a great job, man. I have to say, when I first heard about your show, I downloaded pretty much every episode and on the way back and forth from Vegas, listened to pretty much every one. And yeah, you're doing a great job. You got a great interview style and very engaging, easy to chat with. So keep it up.
Guests have been great, like yourself. So thanks again for being on the show, and thank you, listeners, for listening in. And if you like something, learn something, laughed, please share the podcast or the YouTube link with anyone you know. And this has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.